So I know this is old news at this point, and I'm sure you've heard from all different YouTubers what they think about this. And of course, I'm talking about the Spider-Man exclusivity on the Avengers game. You can only play as Spider-Man if you buy the PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 version of the game. If you buy the game on Xbox or PC, you do not get to play as Spider-Man. And that has a lot of people upset, and understandably so. Because if you're a Marvel fan, you know that Spider-Man is a big part of the Avengers. In the comic books, he definitely is, and in the MCU, it took a long time, but we finally got him as a part of that. And I remember when this Avengers game was first revealed, a lot of people were disappointed. They were saying, where the hell is Spider-Man? Well, the other day, we got our answer. Spider-Man will be in the Avengers game, but only on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Spider-Man will be included as a free DLC pack for PlayStation users. And this DLC isn't even timed exclusive. It will never be available on Xbox and PC. So when the story first broke out, I wanted to make a video about it immediately, but I was trying to figure out what the story is between Sony and Spider-Man, because anyone who's familiar with the MCU and the Marvel movies knows that Sony has the film rights to Spider-Man. And while that's public knowledge, there is no information about what the deal is with Sony and the Spider-Man video game rights. And I had a hard time finding any information about that, but yesterday, Crystal Dynamics, the developer of the Avengers game, they stated that if it weren't for PlayStation exclusivity, Spider-Man would never be in the Avengers game because Sony apparently does have the rights to Spider-Man in video games. A lot of people on Twitter were confused because Spider-Man has made recent appearances on multi-platform games like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. It was on the Xbox One, PS4, and Spider-Man was one of the characters. It didn't matter which platform you had, you could play Spider-Man. Then you had Ultimate Alliance 3, which was a Nintendo Switch exclusive that also had Spider-Man. So most people were confused about what the deal is with Sony and Spider-Man video game rights, but it seems like we got our answer because Crystal Dynamics could not have Spider-Man in the game without Sony's permission, which means that Sony has the exclusive rights to Spider-Man in video games. This was most likely part of the agreement that Sony and Marvel recently came up to last year that would extend Spider-Man in the MCU, because originally what was going to happen is that Tom Holland would have starred in more Spider-Man films, but they would have been entirely produced by Sony. Kevin Feige would have had nothing to do with it. And honestly, I would have been okay with that, because that would have meant that we would have had Spider-Man and Eddie Brock in the same movie. The Venom movie was made by Sony and Marvel had nothing to do with it, so Venom can't appear. It's all convoluted. It's very confusing the way the superhero movies work and licensing agreements, and that's not what we're here to talk about. But it's likely that when Marvel and Sony were negotiating about the movie rights, the video game rights were also part of those negotiations. So it's possible that Sony didn't obtain those rights until after Ultimate Alliance 3 and Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which would explain why Spider-Man was allowed to appear on other consoles besides the PlayStation. But regardless of the reasons why Spider-Man is exclusive on PlayStation, a lot of people are pissed, especially people who are not on the PlayStation, because that means that they can't play as Spider-Man. And I feel that people are more understanding about the Insomniac game because Insomniac is owned by Sony and Sony did finance the game, so that was a first-party title, but third-party exclusive content, it definitely rubs a lot of people the wrong way because you would have to buy an entirely different console in order to get the full game experience. So it makes a lot of sense why people are pissed off, but the thing is, Sony has no reason to care. If you're on Xbox or PC, Sony isn't talking to you. They only care about you if you buy a PlayStation 5. And that's exactly what they're trying to do with Spider-Man being exclusive on the Avengers game. Because I can guarantee you it's going to convince a lot of people to buy a PlayStation 5 instead of a Series X. And that's all Sony cares about. They couldn't care less if PC and Xbox fans are mad at them. Because as far as Sony's concerned, that's what they deserve for picking the wrong console, for choosing the wrong platform. And even though that might be considered wrong from a moral perspective, business-wise, it's brilliant. Because it gets more people to care about the PlayStation 5. And for Sony, that's all that matters. They've invested a lot into this console and they want it to pay off. So while Spider-Man being exclusive isn't an ideal scenario, it really is nothing anyone can do about it. That's the thing, so why complain? Because if you boycott the game because you can't play as Spider-Man, that's only going to hurt Square Enix. It doesn't hurt Sony. They have the video game rights to Spider-Man. And there's really nothing anyone can do about it, because this deal that Sony and Marvel have extends far beyond the video game industry. So while I definitely believe that gamers should stand up for themselves and they should go against anti-consumer things, this is one of those things that you really can't do anything about, and it's just a waste of energy to complain about it. Usually I'd say vote with your wallet if you don't like something and don't buy the game if you don't want to support it, and you can definitely feel free to do so if you're really that much against Sony having the exclusivity with Spider-Man and PlayStation, but keep in mind that you refusing to buy the game on Xbox or PC, it's not going to change a damn thing. Because Sony already has the rights, and there's nothing you could do about that. And there's really nothing you could do as an Xbox or PC player to convince Sony to allow you to play as Spider-Man. If you don't have a PlayStation, if you're not a PlayStation customer, Sony has no reason to give a fuck about you. And that's just the reality of the situation. And to tell you the truth, if I was a Sony executive, I'd be doing the exact same thing that they're doing. It makes complete business sense because it doesn't hurt Sony one bit because they already have the rights, and why not use those rights to advance the PlayStation brand? As much as it sucks from a consumer perspective, I mean, it is what it is. Spider-Man probably wouldn't be in the Avengers game at all if it weren't for the PlayStation exclusivity. So ultimately, this arrangement is probably a good thing.